So far, we have discussed about contact forces. Now, let's discuss about non-contact forces. What are non-contact forces? A force which can be exerted by an object on another object, even from a distance, without touching each other. That is called a non-contact force. So that means there is no physical contact between the object which exerts the force and the object on which force is exerted. So the examples of non-magnetic force, non-contact forces are magnetic force, electrostatic force, and gravitational force. So let's discuss magnetic force. Say students, you know that a magnet attracts things made of iron or steel. So if you bring a magnet near iron nails or pins, the magnet pulls them towards it. Now, since the iron nails and pins move towards the magnet, it means that the magnet exerts a force on them. And this force exerted by a magnet, it's called magnetic force. So the magnetic force acts even from a distance. So magnet exerts magnetic force on objects made of iron, steel, nickel, cobalt. It does not exert a force on non-magnetic materials like iron, steel, sorry, copper, wood, glass. It does not exert force on these objects. So whenever we bring a magnet near some iron pins, then at a certain small distance, the iron pins suddenly jump towards the magnet and stick to it. Since a magnet can exert its magnetic force on iron objects from a distance without touching them, therefore magnetic force is a non-contact force. And the magnetic force between a magnet and an iron, it's always that of attraction. See, the magnet also exerts a magnetic force on another magnet which is placed near it. So the magnetic force between two magnets can be that of attraction or repulsion, depending upon which poles of the two magnets are facing one another. So, for that, let me tell you that the north pole of a magnet and another north pole, they are like poles. Similarly, a south pole and another south pole, these are like poles. But if you have north pole and south pole, these are called unlike poles. And as you have studied this, that like poles of magnet um, repel each other, whereas the unlike poles of magnet attract each other. So this means that there is a magnetic force of repulsion between the like poles of two magnets, and there is a magnetic force of attraction between the unlike poles of two magnets. Okay, so this is an example of a non-contact force. And let me tell you that the magnetic force is widely used in our everyday life. For example, in many toys, they work due to the magnetic force exerted by magnets fixed inside them. The magnetic strips help to keep the refrigerator door closed tightly. Even there are certain stickers which stick to iron objects without any glue. Such stickers also contain tiny magnets, and that's why they stick to the iron objects due to magnetic force. In fact, this magnetic force is also used to separate scrap iron objects from among the heap of waste materials. Okay. Now let's discuss another type of non-contact force, that is electrostatic force. But before that, you should know the meaning of the terms like electric charge, electrostatic, and electrically charged object. So, see, students, you know that electric charges are of two types: positive electric charge and negative electric charge. And electric charges can be produced by friction when one object is rubbed over another object. So, this term electrostatic, it refers to the stationary electric charges, and an object having stationary electric charges on it, it's called electrically charged object. Suppose if you are having a comb and you are rubbing this comb, we say that comb has acquired electrostatic charge. So the comb is a charged object. Okay, and electrically charged object exerts an electrostatic force. So electrostatic force is actually an electrical force, okay? And it's called electrostatic force because the electric charges involved in it, they remain static, they remain stationary. The electric charges remain confined to the charged object, they do not move, okay? And the force exerted by the electrically charged object is called electrostatic force or electrical force. So an electrically charged object can exert an electrostatic force on an uncharged object or on another charged object. So again, if you are having plastic comb which is electrically charged by rubbing in dry hair, it will exert an electrostatic force on uncharged tiny pieces of paper and attracts them. Okay, so basically, the movement of tiny pieces of paper, it's due to the electrostatic force exerted by electric charges, which is occurred by the comb on rubbing. Okay, so basically, it's the electrostatic force which is also responsible for raising our body hair when we try to take off a polyester shirt or terylene in dry weather. Okay. In fact, if you take an inflated balloon and rub it with a piece of cloth and then press it against a wall, you'll see that the ball sticks to the wall. Why? Because of the electrostatic force. When the balloon is rubbed, balloon gets electrostatic charges and hence get electrically charged. And when that electrically charged balloon attracts the uncharged wall, it sticks to it. Okay? So electrostatic force is also a kind of non-contact force because this force can be exerted by charged object on another object from a distance without being in touch with each other. Okay? And yeah, this just like magnetic force, an electrostatic force can be of attraction or repulsion, depending upon the mm, uh, depending upon the charges, positive charges and the negative charges, depending on situation. The electrostatic force between an charged object and an uncharged object is always of attraction. But the electrostatic force between two charged objects, if they are having like charge, means positive positive or negative negative, then that is of repulsion. But if the electrostatic force between two charged objects is having is if the charges are unlike, one is positive and the other is negative, then the electrostatic force is of attraction. And let me tell you that this electrostatic force is utilized in reducing air pollution by removing dust, soot from the smoke which is coming out of chimneys of factories. So, this is about electrostatic force. Now, let's talk about gravitational force. See, students, Newton said that every object in the universe pulls every other object with a certain force. And the pull exerted by objects possessing mass, it's called gravitational force. Okay, so gravitational force between the two objects is a force of attraction always. Okay, and it acts even if the two objects are not connected by any means. Okay, it's the gravitational force between the sun and earth which holds the earth in its orbit um, around the sun. In fact, it's a gravitational force between the earth and the moon which holds the moon in its orbit around the earth. So gravitational force, if suppose you are having two ordinary objects, say two stones, they are having very small mass. Now the gravitational force between the two small objects, it's very weak. So that is why it cannot be detected easily. And this gravitational force, it becomes strong only if one of the object has huge mass like that of earth. So that is why the gravitational pull between earth and the other object, it's very large and it can be easily detected. Okay, so suppose if we drop a stone from some height, what will happen? That stone will fall down towards the earth. Why? Because the earth exerts a gravitational force of attraction on the stone and pulls it down. In fact, the earth pulls all the objects towards its center. So, this force with which the earth pulls the objects towards it, it's called the force of gravity or simply gravity. So, basically, gravity is a natural force of attraction. And we are all pulled to the earth by the force of gravity. So, the force of gravity acts on all the objects and it causes all the objects to fall towards the earth. Similarly, a leaf falls from the tree, it's due to gravity. Fruit also falls down from a tree due to the force of gravity. Rain falls down to earth due to the force of gravity. In fact, when we open a tap, water begins to flow downwards towards the ground, right? It's again due to the force of gravity. Water in rivers that flow downwards due to force of gravity. So the downward movement of things, that means everything falls to the ground because of the force of gravity acting on the objects. Okay, in fact, when a ball is thrown upwards, that also falls back to the earth due to the force of gravity. So the gravitational force of earth acts on all objects, and it acts from a distance without there being a physical contact. Therefore, this gravitational force is an example of a non contact force. So, this was all about non contact forces.